Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twillow Talk. I am Tanys Coughlin from the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy, and I am joined by my beautiful co-host, Jennifer Jurkofsky.
Hi.
I am a Reiki Master, and sorry, Jen, what?
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You do it. You do
it. I'm a Reiki Master, Celtic Shamanic High Priestess, Crystal Master, all that stuff, Channel, Oracle. And Jen, tell us what you do, please.
Yeah, stuff like that. I'm a registered psychotherapist, certified Canadian counselor, intuitive life coach, Reiki master, all kinds of energy stuff. And here we are.
Here we are. So we're happy to have you all here today. As per our usual sort of standard, we usually use the deck, the Wisdom deck by Diane Cooper and Greg Stewart. And we pick a card for that. Is there anything that we need to know about the transits first, Jen?
Well, yeah. I mean, as of the, oh golly.
For all of you that aren't aware, it's the human design transits we're looking at with Jen.
Yeah, I'm going to actually just pull it up really quick because I was looking at it earlier and then whatever.
While she's doing that, I'll just pick two cards and see where our energy is at for today.
We've got a couple going on here. Let's pull up the 26 because that is what is in our sun right now. Yeah, so actually we have the full channel here, the 2644, which is the channel of surrender. So
you mean like accept what is, which is the card I got? Surrender, accept what is. There we go.
You know, there's
can't make this stuff up.
Continuity in all of this. That is for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's this kind of balancing between the taming the power of the great, and really this idea of coming to me. And so what that means is like there's this kind of creative juices, and there's also this kind of hesitancy to make sure that we understand, right? And so the 44 is like this kind of instinctual part of us, right? We're looking at, our ability here that to just to really know, right? That deep knowing that comes for human design, it's in the spleen center, which is that intuitive survival instinct. That's kind of that original knowing. And so, we're balancing that piece. And we're looking at it with this kind of willingness to make improvement, which is that 26 side of things, right? And so there is this kind of back and forth between fear and, fear of change and wanting improvement. And so we may find ourselves kind of oscillating between that.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who, maybe normally kind of reside in that fear spot, having that 26 connect in is kind of like in this moment, I'm finally having that openness, that creativity to make those changes or those improvements, and to move past maybe old concepts or old ideas or things that we, thought served us, but that maybe don't so much anymore. So really kind of, going into this holiday time and, right now in general, it's funny because human design's end of the year is not, December, the end of December, moving into January. It's actually later in January. But this whole time of the year right now is really about that kind of reflection, right? And, how has the last year served? What is going on? Did I actually make progress in this experiment that is life, right? And, where do I want to go from here? So really kind of, this place right now of being open for making those changes, like that really does come with that reflective piece. We can't do one successfully without the other. So just kind of noticing that pattern that might be coming up and kind of going, oh yeah, but okay, but I do want, no, but it's okay, yeah, but right, we do that
Yeah, it's
back
that
and
push
forth.
pull. And interestingly enough, we've just been through the full moon too, right? Which is also about letting go and releasing. So you tend to have that magnified a little bit as well, right?
Yeah. Well, and so much of what we've been through lately really has that, like we just came out of wanting routines and all of that and needing to maintain that as a higher priority, right? And now we're looking at it and going, okay, but do these routines really serve me? Are they
Right.
what I really need? Do I need to be creative and do something different? What's going on there, right? So it's
So that's interesting because I often talk about how when you're in your comfort zone, you're like in your comfort zone, and then all of a sudden you want to just kind of start to go out. You can't see my hands, but start to go out a little bit, right? You put your wings out a little bit and you start to be like, okay, let's just test this a little. And then we come back, right? And we kind of do that back and forth, I think, throughout. So that's kind of interesting because that's kind of the pattern you're talking about too, right? Because this would be your routines and your comfort. And then you start to feel like you want to be a little more creative with that, right?
definitely.
And again, you can't make this stuff up, right? We have accepting what is in the cards. So that's like accepting where you're at, like you were talking about. But then making a difference is the other one. So, like you've got, okay, I
Perfect.
accept where I am, but I'm ready to make a difference and
Yeah.
change. And it's also, for me, this card's also about that, the intuitive piece, because we've got the mouth in the sky kind of thing is sort of indicative of that for me. So
Is there a nose on there too? Or is it just the mouth?
um,
The tip of one?
not a direct, it could be a little bit of a nose on
I'm
there.
only asking because part of this too, like in human design, we talk about some of the different senses, right? And so right now, the sense of smell is actually very important.
Oh.
And so, that idea of, oh, this smells fishy, or I smell a rat, or something smells off, and really taking the time to smell into things. How does it really feel?
So what do you think? Kind of looks like there could be a nose there. That cloud above the mouth.
Well, I asked because when it was further away, I was like, that looks like a nose. I'm curious.
It could be. And we got the waves, which is interesting because waves is all about that sort of waves of change, right? That we're bringing in. And there's a star. It's interesting because I'm wondering, so what do you think about the symbolism of like the hands the way they are? Because they're both the same on the two, right? They're
They're
like
open.
open giving, right? Either giving or receiving, like this kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting that that's the case. And also I feel when I looked at this one, I thought it's kind of that season to go out and make a difference to somebody, right? Like this is probably the hand saving the starfish sort of thing. So I thought, well, that's kind of like what we do around the holidays a lot. We tend to give, right? And receive. And so that's kind of
And I
indicative of
love that too, because the accepting piece is accepting what is coming to us and what we are bringing forward,
yeah.
right? Whereas making a change is about
So that.
giving, right? And
Yeah.
so it would be the one side, right? Because this is our
It
receiving
is.
side and this is our giving side. We were talking about that when we were working on the course,
That's
right?
right.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there is this kind of component in the cards very much laid out there where when we look at acceptance, we think like, okay, yeah, that's actually across the board. I have to accept what's
Yeah.
coming to me and what I'm,
Releasing.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because this one actually kind of for me it rolls into what our card is. So I've gone ahead and shuffled and picked a card while you were doing the transits, and the card that I got for today was success. So to me, stars are often an indicator of like success, because we always get those little star stickers when we're kids.
Okay.
So for me, that's the symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
So our success card, this is our topic. For those of you that don't know, we always pick a card for a topic, and so this is our topic for the day. And so what it says is success and failure are mere labels, which can blind with ignorance or despair. Triumph can be short lived, whilst disappointment with the gift of non-judgment can be a blessing. Wisdom reminds you that all events are opportunities to learn and grow. So enjoy your experiences and seek the positive in every situation. Align your visions for wealth, health, and relationships with your ultimate goal. Reach beyond conventional concepts of success and failure. Then your life will reveal abundance and success beyond measure or language. And our affirmation for this week is I perceive success in all that I do. I perceive success in all that I do. So, yeah, I picked this one and I was like, really? We're going to talk about success? But in that context, it's true, right? It is a mere label.
I loved that line in there about it being just a label. And the thing is, I mean, when we really think about it, what is success for me might be failure to you, and vice
Right.
versa.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I succeeded in going to bed early last night and not doing anything. That was a success for me. For
That's
somebody else who would like to stay up and still be doing something, that would have
mm,
been a failure.
right.
Right. And
Exactly.
so it is so arbitrary in many, many ways.
For sure. So I ask you out there, and I'm going to put this uh, in our chat. What does success mean to you?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because, I'm thinking about the gate 26, which is the one that's in our sun right now. And it's the salesman, right? So it could go either way. We could be looking at this as, lies and shadiness and all of that. But there's also this kind of component of, seeing a brighter future. And there is also that integrity, right? And it's about walking the line, because in all of these we have, the shadow side and the light side, and they're both important aspects of
Mhm.
what we're dealing with. And so, when we're looking at this idea of success, again, it's like it's so important, because somebody else's idea of success could lead us in a way that we don't want to go.
Mm,
Right?
true.
And we might think that, well, we'll be successful if or when, as opposed to where do I have success right now?
And
Right?
that's where the gratitude thing
Self-joy.
comes in, right?
Mhm.
And I also think celebrating successes is so important because that helps to keep that vibratory, like the vibratory essence of self at a higher vibe, right? When we're looking for success, just like affirmations, you say affirmations because you want to attain that. And the more you feel that, you really feel like what it's like to be that, not what it's going to be like. What is it like to be that now? So we have to sort of put ourselves in that position in order to do that. And I think, that's in order to do that, celebrating the little successes helps to bring you from a vibratory perspective into that, maybe the bigger, what you consider successes, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Most
And
definitely.
it's like you said, it's very subjective, just as in many ways, just as integrity is, because integrity is a judgment on what's right and wrong. And every person you talk to will have, I mean, with the exception of some of the bigger things in life, but everybody has their opinion on what's right and wrong, and what does integrity mean, right? So I think just like that, successes are the same.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do appreciate what you were saying about honoring the small successes. And I don't think that we often spend enough time doing that and focusing in on the small successes. I talk to clients all of the time, and they talk about, having these goals and wanting to reach them, and then beating themselves up because they didn't, and what that means, and how that brings them down. And it's like, okay, but what did you achieve?
Exactly.
Right? It's one thing to have this goal that's like so far out there, but you have to, honor each little success along the way.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't just go from here to there without that journey. So,
Exactly.
right, every step along that journey is another success that needs to be honored.
Yeah, and the journey is the success because you're learning and doing it. As long as you're doing it, that's a
Mm-hmm.
success. So, you know, I I mean, weight loss has always been a thing, and judging over that. Um, as long as you're doing your best to make the right choices for your eating,
Mm-hmm.
that's a success, even if it doesn't show up on a scale, just as an example.
Yeah.
Or like if you're in rehab for something, even if you're doing the exercises, even if you're not able to do the full range of motion, if you're seeing some progress and you're doing the exercises, that is a success.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be able to do it all right away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, and it's also that kind of idea of, and I, again, thinking about like the whole 26 that we're in right now, but this idea of what am I looking at? What am I focusing on, right? Am I
Mm,
looking towards the abundance or am I looking towards the lack,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And, where our focus is where our thoughts are, where our emotions are, where our actions are,
Yeah.
right? So what is it that we're focusing on? Are we allowing our fears and our insecurities and our negative self-talk and whatever else might be showing up to show us lack, right? Or are we allowing that part of us that knows that we have access to all that is right here, right now, to be able to embrace that abundance?
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is there is no time and space.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about that concept, this whole journey thing, it's already happened.
Yeah.
So we're already where we want to be. So it depends on how you look at these things, Although
Yeah.
that's a tough one for us to kind of for humans, it's a little bit of a tough thing for us to bend our mind around the fact that
But time
everything's
doesn't
already
actually
happened.
exist.
Yeah, at times we're so like on time. Time machine.
um,
Perfect.
Yeah, it's so true though. And it's interesting too because we, so often it's like, I'll be happy when, I'll feel better when, I'll do this when. And it's that constant state of I don't have now. I am not now. I
Yeah,
can't be now. And it's like, okay, well, if not now, when? Because truly what we do right here, right now is what we will do forever because we only have now.
right.
Right? So if we don't take the opportunity to change right here, right now, it's one thing to say, okay, yeah, I'll do it then. We don't have then. We
Well,
have
I
now.
mean, that brings up the whole thing too. That's a little bit more of a linear thing for humans is that, we never know. We never know what our future holds and how much time we have.
Mm-hmm.
So do what you want to now. Like, there's always those stories about you have to do what you want right now because you might, who knows, live each day like today is your last. So do what you need to do. Eat the dessert first. Yeah, the food thing. That's the one I always see. It's a meme, I think, on Facebook. But eat the dessert first because you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Enjoy life. Do what brings you joy.
Well, and that's the deeper meaning behind all of it is we can't live our entire life putting off our joy,
Right.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And so, the small success might be, I got outside today and hugged a tree. That brings me joy.
I had a nap today. That brings me joy. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Little things.
I got to
Being
have a
good.
nice cup of tea. That
Yeah.
brings me joy, right? But noticing what brings you joy.
Right.
That's
And
where the
that's the
success
thing.
is.
And when it's bringing you joy.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can know that, okay, it brings me joy to go and hug a tree. But then if you just go out there and do it and you don't actually take the moment to enjoy when you're hugging the tree, then you might as well not have done it.
Yeah.
So that brings it back to being in the moment of the
Yeah.
success. And is that what celebrating the success means, really?
Mm-hmm.
Is that enjoyment of where you're at?
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
and that's it. And, you know, we because of the society in which we live, success sometimes can be skewed and measured differently.
Yeah.
Right? Like success when I get this promotion, or success when I win this thing, or right, you know, whatever it might be. But I think that we have to look at it from a very wider perspective, you know, because it is so arbitrary,
Mm.
truly, truly, right? So in this moment, where can I find success?
Yeah. And that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we find that success?
Yeah.
You know, I think there's something that I've had my clients talk about is like that imposterism,
Mm.
you know, and that's kind of like you found this success, but you don't really believe that you're actually worthy of the success, or that you've actually, like, it's like so it's if you're, say someone's gotten a promotion to a manager, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't feel worthy of being this manager, and yet they've already accomplished the goal. That's what I mean by that, guys. So it's like you feel, well, that's going to come back and haunt me anytime, because I can't have done that, you know, and that's all about the self-esteem and stuff
Yeah,
involved.
someday they're going to recognize I'm not supposed to be in this position.
Yeah,
Somebody else should have had it.
right, right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really not celebrating the success of actually getting there, and the journey, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes success is turning down that promotion.
sometimes it's like, oh, I got offered it. That's great. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not for me, but that's great. But it is a success. It's an honor to be asked, right? In these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, but yeah, like what I'm getting at too is like, you know, look, there's a job opening and I could apply for that, but I really love what I'm doing right now and I don't need more. And there's
Right.
success in that.
Yeah, because you're doing what you love,
Mm-hmm.
and then appreciating that.
Yeah. And I love that the two are so interconnected, right? Appreciation has to be there
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
across the board. And you know, we don't always appreciate, and it's so funny because it uses success, and of course we always look at, okay, well, what's the, you know, the opposite, failure, right? And yet we think that like success is good and failure is bad, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, there are times where I have failed miserably and I truly appreciate that.
Yes.
In a lot of ways that failure was a success,
Yeah.
right? Because it taught me something and it led me in a direction that I wouldn't have gone if I had done the other, but this was better for me,
Exactly.
right? And so again, this idea of labeling, it's so important to recognize that, you know, one isn't good and the other bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about taking the judgment piece out. I think the
Mhm.
card said something about that. Take the
Yeah,
judgment.
well, I just, that whole idea of mere labels, like I just loved that because
Yeah.
they are just labels, and so is good and bad. And you know,
Yeah.
we do this all the time where it's, you know, the number of times I talk with clients about, you know, well, I want to be happy. I don't want to be sad. Okay. And where does that want get you? Right? Because it's the happiness and the sadness, they're both just, they flow. They're emotions. They're not tangible things. Right? So where does the want get us?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I think that's a pretty ingrained thing. You know, when you think about that, though, so let's talk a little bit about the human side of all of this, because the programming is so strong, right? And really, when we're looking at how do we feel about failure versus success? That's very much a programming thing. I mean, we've been programmed with fail versus pass in school from when we were tiny. So, I always like to bring in the, what, we're human and it's okay to feel that way. It doesn't always get us where we want to go, but it's okay to feel the way we feel about those things. So, because that's all part of the process too, is
Right.
feeling the emotion around it and going, okay, I'm feeling this.
But that's the thing, Tanys, and that's what I'm talking about. Allowing yourself to actually feel it.
Yes.
As opposed to going, no, 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 I'm not going to feel that sad. No, 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 I want that. No, no, right? It's that want. That's the issue. Whereas if we could go, okay, sadness, what's your message?
Yeah. Well, and that goes into this, right? The accept what is.
Mm-hmm.
So accept that, okay, yeah, I'm having that feeling of like, maybe I'm not feeling good enough today.
Mm-hmm.
What is that telling me? What do I need to question? What do I need to work on? What do I need to forgive myself for? What do I need to forgive others for? Where am I? Where am I at? What do I need?
Yeah.
Asking those self questions.
Yeah. Well, and I love Rumi's guest house, right? And I know I've talked about it on here before too, but he says this human this human is a guest, being human is a guest house or something along those lines as he
Okay.
starts it, right? And then he goes into talking about, all of the emotions that show up at the guest house, right? And how some of them might come in and completely clear us out, right? But ultimately, he says, welcome them all at the door laughing because they've been brought here as a message from beyond.
Right.
Right. And it's, and I love the fact that he uses the guest house in his poem. It's
Yes.
not our home.
We don't
It's
have
the
to live there.
right. But again, it's this idea that they come as visitors. They're
The
not,
emotion. Yes.
right. They're not part of who we are. Right. I am not sadness. Sadness is here to visit.
Yeah.
Right. It brings a message. And it does clear me out. There's certain things that I might have to address. There's certain things I might have to let go of. Right? There's certain things that, I might say, okay, yeah, that sadness is going to have a place and it's going to take me a while to process it. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that while sadness is visiting, joy can't also visit.
Yeah. Isn't that is such a concept, You always think there's always a predominant emotion at any given moment, but it doesn't mean the other ones aren't there too.
No.
That was probably a big thing for me, like a realization thing for me. And I can't say it was all that long ago, to be honest. I I always just assumed that whatever the predominant emotion was, that's how I would describe how I was feeling.
Mm.
But you start to realize that, especially with things like, deaths of people that have been ill for a long time, for instance, when they cross, you're sad, and that's usually the predominant one with that kind of thing. But you can also be relieved for them,
Mm-hmm.
happy that they're no longer in pain, and happy for yourself if you're the caregiver, for instance, that you're gaining some freedom from doing the caregiver role. And all of those emotions are totally acceptable.
Yeah.
There's no, like, emotions are not unacceptable. They just are.
But then we put judgment on them.
Right.
Right? And it's like, okay, I'm sad. Am I sad enough? Am I not mourning enough?
Yeah.
If I have joy, am I a horrible person because I'm kind of glad that I don't have to, oh, I'm a horrible person. And right. And it's the
And the
judgments
guilt
that
comes in.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the thing is they're all valid.
Yeah.
They're all valid. And they all have a place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, again, when we look at success isn't being happy all of the time.
No, but
Success,
we often equate it with that, don't we?
yeah, but success is truly being able to be on this journey with acceptance,
Mhm.
right? And with, you know, wisdom, and with all of the different things that we talk about, right? And sorry, she just keeps on.
It's our therapy cat. She's the master. She has her own page and everything.
uh, you put me down. Right, but you know, success is being able to, you know, we talk about this, ride the wave.
Yeah.
Right, and being able to go, yeah, okay, today this is what's showing up for me. All right, what do I do with it?
Yeah, yesterday was like that for me. Yesterday was a day. So
Yesterday was a day. Like,
energetically, it was a little bit chaotic for a lot of people. Being a sensitive, that comes through, and it ends up, you know, things happen during the day, and you're like, okay, what do I want to do with that?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you remember that you have to just sit there for a minute and go, okay, yep, okay, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm good, I have a roof over my head. You know, and that's when you start to be grateful for all the things that you do have
Yeah,
on those
most
rough
definitely.
days, right?
And I think too, that idea of like, this is all I have, or this emotion is all I can have, that's where the suffering is.
Yeah.
Sadness in and of itself is not the end all be all of suffering, right? I mean, I've had that deep, deep, gut wrenching sadness where you just want to scream, cry, and just, you know, and it's also invigorating.
Well, it
And it's
when you release the
mhm,
energy,
and it's
right?
grounding. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many other components to it, but if we only look at the part of us that feels being ripped, we're not going to notice the part of us that's being held,
Yeah.
and the part of us that's being mended, right? And the part of us that, yeah, a part of us is dying, right? We talk about like that ego death and that death to self and all of that. And there is a part of us that maybe held a belief, and that belief can't exist anymore for whatever reason. And that has to be let go of. And that is hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. And yet, through all of that, joy's right there waiting for us to look, right? And
Actually,
go,
like,
oh,
hello, hi, yeah, I'm
I'm
over here. Hello.
still here. I haven't left. You just don't notice me right now.
It's over in a corner going,
Mhm.
hello, yeah, yeah. I know he's wanting your attention more, but you know, I am here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about Thich Nhat Hanh because he talks about, like, again, that whole having all of the emotions there. And one of the things that he talks about is like, even though suffering, and I think he even said the seed of suffering might be really strong within you, don't wait until there's no more suffering before you allow yourself to be happy,
Yeah.
right? And you know, we think like, oh, I have this emotion, and then instead of allowing the emotion its course, we go, oh, I have this emotion. Yep, that's mine.
Right.
Oh, that's my emotion. Right. And then that, and I like the idea of that seed, right? Because then we're like, oh, let me water this emotion. Yeah, let me give it some more fertilizer. Okay, yeah. And we're growing it and growing it and growing it. And it's like, whoa.
This brings to mind grief.
Mhm.
You know, because we hold on to grief, because we think we're holding on to whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And the emotion of grief is not what it is that you've lost, that you're having the grief related to.
Mhm.
It's not that, but we tend to want to hold on to it as if it is, because that's like our last piece, especially if you've lost a loved one, right? We tend to want to hold on to that as if it's them, and it's not, and they're not gone. You know, they are there, they've just changed form. So but that's hard to accept too, right? Even the change of form is difficult to accept. So that's not, it's quite normal for us humans to feel that loss, and that is very, very much part of the process. But
Well, and that's the thing though, because grief is part of the process, and it is
yeah,
an important part of the process, but it's
absolutely,
part of a process.
exactly,
It is not the end all be all of where we're supposed to reside.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's why they go through the stages of grief, right? The Kubler-Ross stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And the thing is, it's again not linear, right?
yes,
You might bounce back and forth between those different stages,
yeah,
you know, but again, what we hold on to is what we suffer, right? So that denial, no, it's no, mm-mm,
no,
mm-mm,
this.
right?
They're just away. They're going to come back.
Right. Now we're
I
just
went through that when I was a kid, actually.
expanding the suffering.
Yeah,
Well, now I'm angry. Well, they should have done this and they didn't do that. And why didn't it? Now I'm suffering. Right? So again, we we do all of these things and they're defense mechanisms to not suffer that lead to suffering.
yeah, yeah. But again, it's part of the process.
Yeah.
It is part of the process. It's a learning process.
Yeah.
And learning is what we're here for. So as we go through the process, we learn.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And again, the judgment piece, right? It's okay. It's okay to have waves of emotion.
Yeah.
It's okay to, feel all of the different things that we feel. It's, we think like, oh, well, I shouldn't be this or I shouldn't be that. And now we're fighting against our own process.
Yeah.
Right? And what's the
Resistance to it.
mm-hmm.
We should ourselves to death in society.
Do we ever? Do we ever?
Somebody says you should do this, and you think, oh my gosh, I should do this, when really it may not even be your should, it's their should, but they should it on you.
Mm-hmm.
So
They should it on you.
keeping it clean, protection thing, they should on you. And that's, maybe it's their should, and they do feel like they want to do that, but when they should on you and tell you you should, it's not necessarily right for you. And so but then we take it on as something that, well, they think I should be doing this, so I guess I should be doing this.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily what we should do.
No. No, and we rush our process or we stall our process all based on what we think should be happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? I remember I had one friend and they were doing okay after the loss of something, and they were like, should I be more upset? And it's like, why? Well, I don't know. I just don't feel like I grieved long enough. It's like, why? Right? And it's that kind of idea again of, what should are you telling yourself here, and why does it have place in your experience?
Yeah. I know people who have like lost jobs, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel like they should be upset or they should be scared, and they're not. They're totally excited.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why are you upset? Why are you questioning that? Be excited. It's a new beginning. It's a new chance to do new things and discover and play.
Yeah.
Right?
And so where one might judge that loss as a failure, it's a
Exactly.
success.
Exactly.
Right? And sometimes, we need that too.
Mm.
We need to move on from something and we're not ready or we don't feel secure enough or safe enough. And the universe goes, no, you're moving anyway.
Well, isn't that that came to me earlier, and we went off on another tangent, but that failure thing is often the universe's way of redirecting. What we consider a failure is a redirection. You know, like a person that loses a job. It's obviously not what they're supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be doing this, but they're too scared to leave the job, so they don't. So they have to be pushed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the universe will do that so that they end up in something better,
Totally.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with, you know, marriages or other opportunities, you know, like, you know, maybe they're going for an audition for something and they don't get the part and they're very disappointed, but then they realize 2 weeks down the road they're offered this even better part or something, right? And they don't, and we don't know those things.
No.
So when we can just, you know, accept what is and be in flow,
Mm-hmm.
trust that the universe has our back. But that's such a hard thing for us.
It is really hard.
You
It
know,
is really hard. And you know, we really do, the more we trust the flow of things, you know, the more we're open to anything, and we don't limit our experience either.
Yeah.
And yet, to sit back in trust is difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many times when people have trouble even trusting each other. Never mind trusting something that they can't see, feel, hear, you know, whatever. I mean, some of us can, but others can't necessarily. So, you know, if you're not particularly sensitive and you don't, you know, hear messages or see things or whatever, trusting in something that you have no concept of,
Yeah.
that's a challenge for people,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's totally understandable that they struggle with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even when we do, we struggle. So,
Exactly.
right? I
Yes. I mean, I know there's many times I've been given messages. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'll get to that. I'm like,
well, and the thing is, and what we don't always see, like if we're told wait, right? And I've had this experience before. Sometimes we do figure out why, and we get to see something, and it's like, oh, that's why I had to wait. And other times we don't,
yeah,
and we don't know, and we don't have that confirmation that that waiting was correct.
right.
Right. And so that can be really hard too. But if we recognize that, we might not always know, but we still trust it,
Yeah.
right? Then those few times where we do, they can become, the foundation kind of for our ability to trust in it.
Yeah. And we need those times of confirmation, you know. Um, I mean, the example that people often say, you know, I lost my keys and I was so frustrated because I lost my keys. So they were running late and they're frustrated about running late. And then they realize as they drive by a car accident
Mm-hmm.
that happened at the exact time they would have been at that intersection, you know, and they're like, oh, that
Mm-hmm.
could have been me.
Yeah. I've had
Right?
that experience, not with the lost keys, but just getting away, knowing that I needed to go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do I keep feeling like I gotta go? I'm going to be late. And that was exactly it. There was a big accident and everything else. And, I did end up sitting in the accident, and I still like sitting in the traffic for it. And I still made it on time. But
Yeah.
had I not waited, and so we have, those kinds of experiences. And, the more you trust it, the more this whole idea of success and failure also kind of goes out the window
It's
in a
true.
lot of ways. And
Yeah.
I love, the Sufi teachings of no praise, no blame, right? If I did great, I'll praise. If I didn't do great, all right. I did the best I could do. It's
Yeah.
okay, right? Like I gave it my all. And if it wasn't good enough, that's, I'll try better, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it. Right.
And
And so,
that's something we all have to work on.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
But
we
when
all
it's,
do that.
when it moves from us to the work, right? The greater work,
Yeah.
the attachment to the outcome begins to diminish.
Hmm.
And that is a beautiful place to be.
Well, it's way more peaceful
Mm-hmm.
when we can sit in that.
Yeah. And in there, we begin to understand that what we think is success and failure in the great picture of what is might not actually be what we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, like I think about the stories of like Kidder and Moses, and they were on a boat together, and Kidder is basically pulling up pieces of the boat, and I was like, "What are you doing? Like, these people gave us passage on their boat, and you are destroying it. Like, what is like?" And Kidder's like, "Let's go, keep destroying it with me. Come on." And then in the night, pirates came. The boat was torn to shreds. They left. They didn't attack the boat.
Right.
Right. And so there are these moments where we think like, we have these labels of like, this is a good thing and that's a bad thing. We have no idea
Mm-hmm.
necessarily what is good or bad, what is right or wrong in the bigger picture of life.
Yeah.
Right. And we talk about this when we talk about, if somebody wronged me, right? And we can be really mad at them for that. Or through a lot of work, we can come to a place where we can say, thank you for playing the role of the bad guy in this, because it brought me somewhere else
Yeah.
that I needed to go. And I'm
Well,
not saying that comes easy.
no,
I'm not.
it's not. It's not at all. But, I mean, we've also talked about past lives, how we play all sides of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if we're not, I mean, most people don't come down here saying, I'm going to play the bad guy. This lifetime, I'm going to play the bad guy. We end up making choices that end up, we're the bad guy to somebody, but nobody really wants to do that role. Most of us have that conscience, or that the want to do the right thing inside. We all just make poor choices at
Yeah,
some point or another.
but not all bad guys are even bad guys. Like I can think of instances where I know I was somebody else's bad guy and they were my bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, to say that one ultimately was right or wrong, we were both probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
Right. But we were bad guys to each other. And that was really good.
Well, it creates the environment of what we're here to do, which is learn. So if
Exactly.
we hadn't had the person that did that, we wouldn't have learned that emotion, the emotion of betrayal, or the emotion of whatever that is that the situation was about. We wouldn't have
Or it
learned the
could be to
emotion.
move us again into another phase of life or
Right?
whatever.
A
Right. And
redirection. You can't. People don't redirect unless there's a catalyst for change. So we have to play those roles for each other, and it is a gift often. And we're working off karma often.
there's that too.
Right?
Oh.
We all have karma, so we work off karma by playing different roles in each other's lives and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Just another aspect. I guess it's similar. It's just a different framework, what you're looking at it in.
Yeah.
But
But
like
I
the drama triangle, right?
mm-hmm.
It's like the drama triangle. You're playing either victim, villain, or hero, and you could play all three all at the same time.
Yeah.
Just depends on your perspective. It's all perspective.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think it's important to note is that we can have what we would consider success and failure at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I do a lot of work with ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, and it has one of its components is a life map. And I probably talked about this on here before, but basically the idea is we look at what is the value, what is important to you, right? And then what are the inner kind of things that come up, your thoughts and feelings and all of those that then lead to a behavior that moves you away from your value, right? And then the idea is, what can I do that's going to move me towards my value that I can be comfortable with? But the reality is that sometimes this value and this value don't lead me in the same direction.
Yeah.
Right. And I may have to go, okay, I'm going to go to this value. Right? And I'm going to allow this one to not be as prominent at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if we wanted to judge it, right, there's success moving towards this and failure moving towards that, but it's not. Right? And so again, they're mere labels, because it's not reality to say, oh well, this was the right thing and this was the wrong thing. And in this case, either would have been okay.
Yeah.
But they don't go together. I can't do this and that at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I value community and I value my alone time.
Yeah. And it's okay to do community sometimes and alone time sometimes. You know,
And
but
so,
don't make yourself feel bad when you're doing community for not spending time alone. Because we
right,
need variety.
right.
Yeah.
And that can go a lot deeper too. And so I just think it's really important to just pay attention to what is coming up at any given moment that makes us feel like a certain thing is a success and another thing is a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that coming from? Right?
Yeah.
And is that, is that correct? And where do we really want to go in this moment? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it might be towards what somebody else might say is a failure. And we feel like that's a success for us, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because other people's values are not necessarily ours. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome note to end on.
Mm-hmm.
So success is relative. Success is what we make it.
Yeah.
Enjoy your successes. Celebrate your successes, even the little ones,
Mm-hmm.
step by step.
Yeah.
It's always a joy doing this with you, Jen. So thank you.
Same.
Now I want to celebrate it.
Muscle through it, for me, it's a success because I got to have an authentic conversation with a wonderful dear friend.
As did I. And we're so happy that you guys joined us, or that you're watching this in later times. And thank you for lending your energy. And we shall see you next week back here again,
Yes.
5 o'clock Mondays, for another Twillow talk. And stay tuned, because there's lots of stuff coming up with the school. We're working on some great new stuff, some new programs, and yeah, it's going to be an exciting year next year. So
Yes.
stay tuned. We've got the Celtic Shamanic program starting next week. So if you need more information about that, please reach out to me. It starts on the 20th, and it's a year and a day program. So stay tuned for that. Jen and I are working on the Light Warrior program. We're getting there, getting somewhere with that. And so there's lots of new stuff coming with the Twillow Lifestyle Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And we have gift certificates.
Ooh.
So if someone's looking for something to give to somebody, we have gift certificates for classes. I have gift certificates for healing. So keep that in mind, please.
Wonderful.
And on that note,
are you doing the calendar this year?
I do have calendars. Yes. Yes. We're a little late for that now, because it would have started I have Advent calendars.
Yeah.
I
just didn't know if you had any left still.
First
or not, man. I want some crystals and fun stuff.
Yeah, the Advent calendars are great. We actually have a metaphysical one. We have a metaphysical one this year as well, too. So, anyway, those are still available. If you are still looking for an Advent calendar, just reach out, let me know. And what do we have? We have next weekend. We have vision board workshop with Jacqueline Richards.
Oh, cool.
So check
Vision
that out.
so much fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So check that out. And in the meantime, we wish you all tons of love and light. I'm Tanys Coughlin with the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy. And
I am Jennifer Jurkofsky, and I'm with Twillow, as well as my Holistic Self Counselling. And yeah, it's been wonderful.
Have an awesome day, everyone. Sending you tons of Love and light.